And if we stand and recite the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Then would you please do the roll call?
Sure will. Roland?
Here.
Holly? Here. Brian? Absent. Don?
Here.
Jen Burgos, myself here. Cassie? Here. Cindy? Absent. Maybe late?
I think we'll move on while we wait to see if Cindy is able to make it. And we'll entertain comments from visitors. I don't know if anybody's signed up on that sheet. It doesn't look like it. I think there might be. Is there one on
Might
there?
have been one from last month, and then it was.
Oh, yep, that was from, okay. So there are no comments from visitors. We'll move on, and I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda. We can revise or remove as we need to.
I'll make the motion to approve the agenda.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any more discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed by the same sign? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Okay, we have some scheduled presentations, and I'd like to, I guess we'll just take them in order. So if Renee Larson and Ms. Parker would like to come and share, that would be great.
Do I go up front?
Yes, please come and sit at the table so we can hear you.
Renee's presenting on behalf of Community Ed. Laura's out of town tonight. She'd asked if we put her verbiage, we have to wait until the end to do the.
Not that it's going to be very exciting and interesting, but I can watch it tomorrow.
We have gotten to be very boring, so.
And that's okay. As Dan said, Laura's in, with her dad to Rochester tonight. The youth football and volleyball, that's all underway, and they have 94 participants in the football in grades 2 through 6, and 59 participants in volleyball grades 3 through 6. The youth bowling starts the first week of October, and they still have room for registrations. We have a full bus going to Jersey Boys on Saturday, and that's 50 people with a waiting list, so that's very exciting. I'm the tour director for that, and they're all like my age and thereabouts, so it's kind of a senior bus. The next accent is slated to hit mailboxes November 1st. Any submissions for it need to be in by October 1st, so we have started entering. And it looks like there's some fun things coming up. We're looking at a bus going to Concordia for their holiday Christmas concert. And Sam Sadowski was the one that did call Laura and asked if that could be arranged. So it's not definite, but we're looking at that, and that would be December 2nd. And we have successfully trained 20 youth in firearm safety and have another 18 scheduled for the month. For next month. So that's been a really positive program, and I know kids are finally getting into the classes, and that's what was not happening before. And they've gotten a lot of, have some instructors. Laura herself has taken the safety instruction. So, and final thing is they're looking for volunteer tutors to help at Rippleside on Tuesday and Thursdays after school. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. As you know, I'm over in the district office, so I sit in there from 10:30 to 1:30, and I'm able to work on my community ed things that I need to get done, as well as hopefully be an asset to the district office. But any questions or comments?
I have to say she's a great asset in the district office.
Oh, thank you. And I appreciate being put on early. So I'm bright and chipper tomorrow. But thank you so much. If you know other questions, any questions?
Thank you so much for
Thank
coming
you.
and sharing. Next on our list, we have student council reports. I'm wondering, do we have, Mr. Dockin, do we have student council from Rippleside and the high school, or just the high school?
I believe it's just high school.
Okay, so if you want to come forward and share with us, please.
representatives of the high school student council.
So first we're going to be talking about things that we've just been up to recently, and recently we've been planning a homecoming week. So that includes the Ironman and Powder Puff games. We got those plans that they could be happening. We also are planning the pep rally the next upcoming Friday, and that will be trying to get the school more involved, kids getting to play along with teachers like in games, and get just more kids working together. We're also planning dress-up days. This week is currently the candidate dress-up days for the older kids, but then next week will be whole school dress-up days. Also gets kids involved that way. We're also planning coronation for next Monday. Kids from 2 representatives from each grade will get to dress up, walk up on stage. It's a nice little moment as well to get the other grades involved. And then also the homecoming dance, which is 2 Saturdays from now. We also helped set up with the outside lunch that happened last week, I think it was.
It was the first day of school.
The first
No,
Friday,
it's-
the first Friday.
Yes,
Yeah,
first
we-
Friday of school.
There was chalk, music, set up outside tables.
It was nice weather, we wanted to get kids outside. Excited about the first week.
We also, at the next pep rally, are going to be putting to use the new gobbler suit that we were able to get money funded for, because the old one was smelly and old, so this one's a lot nicer. And we're working on ways to get it more school spirit as well, like a red and black like tutu or like a bandana to put on its sleeve or something. And then also, many members of our student council and other members from the school got to go to a leadership conference last week down in Virginia.
Up in
Yeah.
Up in Virginia, yes.
Rockridge
And
High.
we got to learn a lot of new things there, ways to like just better our school, and so we're gonna be, we heard of this thing called a super fan, so it's someone that goes to the games and leads the cheers to make it a more positive environment, make sure that there's no rude things being said, to also just up our school spirit, because our student section isn't super hyped up a lot of the time, and so student council, after homecoming is done, is gonna work on getting someone to go to the games and help out with that. Yeah, that's all.
Any questions?
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. Thank you for coming and sharing.
Good luck with homecoming week.
Ms. Blake and Mr. Meeks, if you would come and share with us. It's great to have all these presentations tonight. It's good to hear what's happening and going on.
Okay, we're here to share our plans for a concert band and concert choir, grades 9 through 12, performance trip this spring. We are planning on heading to Chicago from Tuesday, June 4th until Friday, June 8th. And Kelly's going to share a little bit about what we're going to do.
Tell you about some of the highlights. We used to go to Washington DC and New York City, and I think Cassie, you probably went to New York.
Yep.
Right, yeah. But it's gotten to be a little cost prohibitive, so we thought, let's go to Chicago and see the sights there. There are a lot of things that we're able to do. So if you can see on your itinerary, we've got a dinner show at the Medieval Times. We'll be staying outside of Chicago, not downtown, because it's a little bit less expensive, and we get bus downtown. We'll be at the Sears Tower, we'll be at Millennium Park. We're gonna go to the Chicago Symphony Orchestra concert, to Ed DeBevick's dinner. It's a kind of like Chanhassen, where it's a Broadway show and dinner. And then we will also, we're gonna go to another Broadway show at some point during our trip. We'll be performing at the Field Museum, both band and choir. And we will be also going to Navy Pier, the Shedd Aquarium, having Chicago pizza, and there you can see the Broadway show on Thursday night. And then we will depart on Friday, stop at Six Flags. We'll be back, the bottom one, we'll be back on Saturday, June 8th, early morning. So we're gonna drive through the night and get home then. So that's the itinerary. And the trips are usually, we used to go every 3 years, but now that ninth grade is part of concert choir, concert band, we go every 2 years. So the last trip, they took a really short trip to Wisconsin. This year we want to take a longer trip where we have home performance opportunities in a larger city.
And then we have 4?
Well, yeah, 3.
To be announced, yeah. 3 fundraisers, Driven Coffee, Otis Spunkmeyer's Cookie Dough, and World's Finest Chocolate planned for this year to help students pay for the trip. Then we plan on doing a band and choir benefit dinner where the students will be playing their stuff
Hopefully they're
from
contest pieces
Contest
that people
pieces.
don't often get to hear.
yeah,
And
solo
that's
and
other
ensemble
things.
stuff, and that would be the fourth fundraiser. Yeah, to help pay for the trip, so.
Do you have any questions?
Sounds like fun.
I have only one comment. Thank you for staying in Schaumburg, because if you are not careful in the Chicago area, you can get into some pretty nasty neighborhoods, so I'm really thankful that you're gonna stay out that way.
We stay out, and even when we were in New York City, we stayed in New Jersey, and we're busted, because we couldn't park anywhere, for one
Yeah.
thing, there's no parking.
And it's nice because we get like a tour representative that only does the Chicago trip.
Sure.
Yeah, so she'll.
I think I went to Chicago as a junior or senior. Of the state.
Yeah.
We did, yeah. I know we went to Chicago, I just, don't know if it was a junior or senior. Yeah. It was a great trip.
Yeah, it'll be a fun trip, yes.
Yes.
Thank you so much for sharing. Mrs. Christie, before I ask you to come, are the group that's coming after you, are they high school students? Can they go first?
It's the scribers group,
Yeah.
is that right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, if you, the Writers Club wants to come and share, we would love to hear from you.
Hi, I'm Emma, and we would like to start an official writing club for the AP High School called AHS Writers. About the club, for the club we would like to have a max of 12 students in it, so that everyone can get individual help and everyone can have a wide variety of what they can like write, their poetry, comics, and on with that. And so the reason why we only want 12 kids is so that it's not too constricting, where they can only be like, we can only help you for a few minutes here and that. It's where everyone can help each other go over their work for only an hour from 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. Once a week till November, but we'll get more to that in just a bit. But we'll just go over it for an hour, and then what happens is we all help each other, give each other options, like let's say Annabelle was writing a romance novel. I could help him be like, oh, maybe if you talk a little bit more like professional on this part here, it'll sound a bit better and stuff like that.
So for our advisors, we currently have Mrs. Poole and Mr. Hankey. And Mrs. Poole agreed to do Thursdays from 4 to 5 p.m. every week, and then Hankey agreed to do Mondays from 4 to 5 once the football season is over. And we currently have 8 people that are interested or are thinking about joining. So we would like to meet from 4 to 5 because people have things that they need to get done before, and it would make sure that everyone has the opportunity to make it and get stuff done beforehand. And it just gives everyone the opportunity to be able to make it. And so we have the 12 people that we want to have, and so we currently have 8 that are interested, and that's not a for sure thing, but we can have more, 3 more people that are interested in joining.
For competitions, I have 2 examples for you guys, one with a fee and one without a fee. The one without a fee we can't do this year, but it's just something that is an idea for possibly later on in this. The one with a fee, it's not like every single one of the club members will be doing that competition. It's whichever one likes that one, since it qualifies mainly in poems or prose, and they want to be just in that genre. There are other competitions that do poetry, specifically poetry, or they do a variety of poetry, comics, and novels and onward. But that's the one without a fee. They're usually a little bit smaller, and they're usually more wide variety. But all that I've looked at so far are submit online, and you don't have to go to them, so it's not like you have to write. There are a few few that actually have school that you have to drive to, but I don't think I've ever been doing any of those ones. And that's kind of the little circle right there is kind of what we would like to be our symbol with the school colors and then with the quill pin. So, any questions?
I do have a question. Do other schools have a Striders Club? Obviously they do if there's
Like-
competition, but.
Yeah, there's writing clubs, there's some qualifications for like certain individuals will be like age restrictions for like 8th through 9th or 10th through 12th, so there are restrictions on like a few of them for grade level, but a lot of them are open to whoever's willing to join them. I think most are based off of like some English classes will have you like write up like a thing and then you can submit it kind of thing. So I'm pretty sure there are a few schools that do have writing clubs.
Does anybody else have questions?
I think it sounds fun and exciting.
So the team to me would be on for approval. I think the board needs to give any approval until, unless we get to a point to where there wouldn't be a cost. I just thought, it seemed like really a cool thing. I want girls to come forward and share it with the board and share it out there that this is, my understanding is pretty much student-driven group, so, which makes it even a little bit neater. So, thank you. Are there any other questions?
Yeah, I would just say, I'm really, really pleased to hear about this because, you know, school districts all over the country spend so much time and effort on sports and all kinds of other things, and this is something that we can support students in. You know, if you learn to be a writer, to be a good writer, you have mastered one of the most valuable skills that you'll accomplish in life. And so,
Yeah, our thoughts kind of behind it were, I love writing, and she wants to be like an author when she's older, so we kind of like were thinking, and then I just popped up with like, what if we start a club? And we kind of went to this very, well, first we went to the Sanders, then we went to Define about it.
yeah.
And we kind of just started sending it up, and we're like, this is actually really cool.
What grades is it for?
What was that?
It's 9 through 12 grade.
Does anybody else have any comments or questions? Thank you so much for coming and sharing with us. We really appreciate it. Good luck.
Thank you.
Okay, Mrs. Christie.
All right.
I'm gonna have to move tomorrow.
Yeah.
I'll just go over here.
Hello. Today, the administrative team and myself are going to be talking to you about our students' test scores from the MCAs last year. And we're proud of the work that our students have done in the last year to help with some of the assessment and the achievement that we're showing. So, the first slide on the screen is showing you our district test trends over a number of years. And the state of Minnesota has talked about comparing the year 2019 and 2022 and on. So they have suggested that 2020, which isn't even on this slide, and 2021 aren't compared because of some of the adjustments that were made during the pandemic and before the pandemic. So what we're going to do, or what we're going to talk about today is I'll show you the district test scores, and Dan will talk about the goals for the district and some initiatives that we've had over the past year and that we're carrying forward. And then we'll talk about the ripple side scores and the goals that they have and some of the work that they're doing to meet those goals, and then the high school. So if you have any questions, because there's probably too many numbers in this presentation that you want to talk about, either now at the board meeting or later on, feel free to give any one of us a call or send us an email, and that goes for the public also. We consider this, the MCA test scores, kind of like a well child checkup. So it's not anything diagnostic, but a check for our systems. We'll just start, when we say the district, this is all of our students, so then we'll kind of drill down to the different schools. We are proud this year that we met 2 out of 3 of our district goals that are put into the world's best workforce. So for English, or for reading, we increased by 2.2%. So we missed our reading goal for the district by 0.8%. You can see that our scores have rebounded from 2020. And you can see that there's no dot there on that slide for 2020 because there was no testing that was counted. Our math scores, we increased by 3%, so we met our goal for our district math scores. And our science scores, we exceeded our goal, and we increased our science scores by 12%.
I remember when we set those and we said, boy, those are pretty lofty goals, so that's quite an accomplishment because I think it really is hard to move the mark that much.
Right, so we talked about the goals. These are district-wide goals. Then we stayed with the 3% goal. So to increase each of the areas by 3%. Reading, we just missed it, but we're gonna stay in that, again, with the 3% and try to move everybody that direction. The reading tests are done in grades 3 through 8, and again in 10th grade. So our goal is to have 57.3% proficient in the reading. By spring, our goal is to have 62.3% proficient in the math. Again, a 3% increase there. And then by spring, or this spring at the test, we'll have 43.2% of our students in science proficient, another 3% increase. And I'm going to talk a little bit about all these goals, but the science goals, if you remember, and maybe you don't, because you might not have been on the board, we talked about this a year ago, our science scores weren't in a good spot, but we had moved forward to teaching to the new standards, new curriculum. The state was still kind of testing on the old ones. With that said, there was and I'm stealing a little bit of what Lisa and Andy might talk about, but there was a focus on bringing science in grades K-6 into the classroom more, and then just looking at the standards and taking time to make sure we're teaching to the standards or teaching the standards so that when we came to do the assessments it worked. So hats off to everybody who worked on, not all of them, but really the science. If you saw the bar graph, it was almost 12% increase, which is huge. So, and some of the things we've done, last year we had added 2 days, which were strictly data days. Our staff took a look at the data we had, look at our standards. They met within their department grade levels. They met within their grade levels. We did scope and sequence. We did all that work that we know is good work, but we just haven't had time to fit it in. First day of that, we started in the morning, and everybody was in the big gym, new gym in the high school, and just took apart the standards and took a look and saw how they compared with what the testing was, and we just took that data, that information that we found, and we ran with it. Part of that process was to identify the strengths and weaknesses in what we were doing, areas that maybe were, I don't want to say overemphasized, but maybe got hit repeatedly, and then we found areas that maybe didn't get touched or maybe just got hit a little bit, and we needed to take a look at what we're doing. And again, our teachers and our staff did nice work with that. Implement the READ Act requirements. The READ Act, one of the 3 programs that's approved right now for the READ Act is the LETTERS program. We jumped into that 3 summers ago, I believe it was. 3 summers ago with some grant and some other funding we had found. So we have teachers that are already, we're in the process of getting that training. And I think that's paying off for us right now as we keep moving forward. We're taking a look at the 3 programs that have been approved. Are we gonna, is there a benefit to having everybody trained in the same one, or maybe we have some people look at another method or another program, and that hasn't been decided yet. We just really started those discussions. We've also reviewed math curriculum and implemented resources. We have all new math curriculum. K-8, K-12,
K5.
K5. K5, we have new math curriculum. We've done the same with science. We've added science curriculum in 6 through 12. That was met with different community planning teams last year and with our math and our science departments and reps from each grade level. And we're bringing on a new SEL curriculum, and we're starting to implement those resources in the Character Strong. Again, community curriculum meetings last year to review that, and a lot of good input on each of the three as to what we were looking at, what we thought we needed. But we have to take care of our students' social and emotional learning as well before really anything else matters. So if we get students in a good place, and then the rest of it'll help us fall in the line. And you know, another thing we've done, we just offered, I would say silly, but sometimes simple incentives for students in grade levels who meet their goals. Things from maybe they get an extra half hour in the gym at the end of the day, or stuff like that, or simple prizes. Things that, depending on the match up with the age group of students, things that just kind of may motivate them. So again, district-wide, I think everybody from A to Z has really played a role in helping us move forward and get us going on track. And one thing that's, well, maybe it showed on one of the early slides, but we are above state average in all three of these areas, math, reading, and science. And our goal is to expand that gap and move even further above state averages as we go forward. So.
All right, so this is some of the ripple side information, and the state average that Dan is talking about is the black line. I should have clarified that when I started. So in reading grades 3 through, or I'm sorry, at ripple side in reading grades 3 through 6, the MCAs. Grades K through 12, we are assessing them, but it's an assessment that we use district-wide instead of statewide. And actually, K through 10 are taking some of those screening tests and diagnostic tests. So you can see we were above state average in grades 3 through 6 for reading.
Before you go on from reading, I have a quick question, and maybe my question is more for Andy. You know, a few years ago, there were some changes that were made. There were a bunch of paras were retiring or moving on to different jobs, and I remember a conversation I had with you when we were talking about do we replace those paras? And the conversation that we had was, you said, I think it's more important to have a licensed teacher in front of children when it comes to some of this reading stuff. And that happened. We ended up hiring with some CARES Act money, some licensed teachers. Is it fair to say that by doing that, that helped to increase these test scores?
I think that the shift just in our staffing, really it shifted to the current title team model that we employ at Rippleside. I would say that has a cumulative effect across the board. I don't know if we're seeing increase from that change, because that's been 2 years now. Generally, they say you need to see 3 to 5 years of data to
accredit it.
Yeah, but I would definitely say, you know, that idea that supports, I think, you know, we're talking about data meetings. Our title has quarterly data meetings with each grade level, and they're talking about data with teachers. They're doing a lot of the behind-the-scenes data work that wasn't necessarily able to be done before the creation of our current system. And I think it's bringing tangible, applicable resources, data, talking points, instructional practices to our teachers to implement on a daily basis. So I'm sure there are some of the benefits. I think that, you know, we've had not significant necessarily, but we've had a number of our teachers going through the letters training. You know, as Dan says, a couple summers ago, we started with that process. So I think that there's almost been a philosophical shift in the way that we're teaching reading. And I'm not just saying in Aiken, but I think that the traditional methods of reading have really been questioned over the last 3 years, and there's been a significant shift, which is actually probably a big push of why the legislature imposed this READ Act. But it's
it's really data-driven, science of reading-driven. I think that our staff overall is the reason that this is happening. You know, coming back to getting our kids ready to learn emotionally, and then just positive instructional practices, you know, being reflective in their practices and working together to improve. I think that's why we're seeing the results we're seeing.
Awesome. Let me clarify. I'm not advocating that we should not hire paras. I'm not saying that. I think paras are very, very important, and so, but I know that there was some shifts that were made, and I
Well, I
want
think one thing that Andy mentioned that I want to gloss over is with the change of the shift we've had with, so what we did is we reduced a couple of title paras and we added a teaching position, and that position has helped gather data and interventions and help put things together and been able to work with classroom teachers, which has got has made the data more valuable to us and more useful to us. So I do think there's a correlation there, but it is really hard to say this one thing because we've done a lot of stuff. Our staff have done a lot of different things and worked hard to just improve what we do. But I do think that played a role, and that's helped in the process.
Thank you.
Our math scores went up about 9%, or I'm sorry, not 9%, they're 9% above the state average. At Rippleside, they went up about 1.1%. In grades 3 through 6, they also take the math MCAs.
And I think, yeah, I mean, I'll speak to this a little bit. I think that since I've been there, you know, there hasn't been a consistent resource K through 5, K through 6. And so I think that's been the biggest driver of getting, you know, having some consistency and continuity, grade level to grade level of what we're teaching. It's kind of been a hodgepodge of resources and materials at Rippleside for a long time. And so I think that's going to be the biggest strength in getting this new math curriculum in place, is that we're going to have that consistency, continuity, and a consistent resource to help, you know, guide our teachers in raising hopefully our academic achievement in math.
And at Rippleside, 5th graders take the science test. So this is just the 5th grade class. When it is just one grade level like this, sometimes you want to be careful comparing them because one group of students may be more proficient than another, and so we always want to be careful when we're looking at this information to make sure that we're keeping that in mind. So we're impressed, but we want to make sure that we know that the 5th grade must be, I'm just going to round, about 100 students. So that's where that information is coming from.
So there's only one class? I mean,
The only-
The whole 5th grade, so next year it'll be that class, the 4th grade will be the 5th grade, right?
Yeah.
And you guys can kind of tell how that class performs before, so you kind of know, I think, where we'd be at, kind of based on what it is, because we have small classes that it can be affected from year to year. I just recall from my two sons going to school, quite a vast difference.
Yes, so we can't compare science because this is the first year that they take it, those cohorts, but we have I have a data sheet that shows the different cohorts as they move through the system. And as teachers, we will say, well, like, oh, look, this group is continuing to grow.
We have a longitudinal data template that she has, and so reading, math, and science, we look at that, and then we compare apples to apples because we're comparing the same kids to the same kids.
But it's also really hard for science because they're getting tested on 3 years of information in 5th grade. So you're looking at, they're getting tested on 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade content. Now, I don't know about anybody else, but I know how well our kids remember yesterday, more than 3 years ago on some stuff. So science is a way different test than the math or the reading.
Well, and I think too, you know, and I'm gonna say this is state, if not countrywide, I mean, especially at our younger grade levels. I mean, science has been one of the subject areas that's been kind of sacrificed, if you will, you know, because of the focus on ELA, English Language Arts, and math. And so, gonna come up in our next, and most of you know this, but like that's been the biggest change at Rippleside this last year. And one of our building goals is just the exposure. And that was a K-12 discussion. You know, our secondary teachers, when we were meeting as a science committee, really thought that just the increased exposure, and, you know, having kids have increased science minutes and time, we're gonna see big gains. And so last year was the first year of that. I'll just skip down to science and I'll come back. But you can see K through 2, 60 minutes a week, through read aloud, Scholastic magazine, science content, hands-on experiments. You know, and then in the upper grade levels, this actually helps support our nonfiction text, which is one of our reading goals. But we'll go up into reading. So K through 2 teachers, the big thing in this is last year when our implementation team at Rippleside, Kathy and I were having a discussion, we talked about having goals for a couple of years, so 2 or 3 years. So we're actually on the second year of keeping these goals with a few tweaks. The changes in yellow there. So a new resource that we have to really support our K through 2 kids, really our K through 6 kids, is the decodable library. Kathy, do you want to elaborate on the decodable library a little bit?
It was a resource that teachers use when they're teaching phonics. It gives the patterns of the phonics that they're teaching. So teachers were saying that they needed that decodable library to enhance their phonics instruction. And phonics instruction is one of the key elements in reading. And so that's why we have the decodable library.
And that comes from letters, really. You know, that's just kind of that shift in the way we're teaching reading. So we thought that you guys would hear a lot about the science of reading, but it's kind of that whole, what's the word I'm looking for, Kat? It means kind of the whole approach, right? It's not just saying that, well, guided reading is the way to go, or phonics instruction is the way to go. It's really encompassing all of these strategies and prescribing, you know, here's the minimum amount of time you need in this skill, and here's the minimum amount of time you need in this skill. And having our group going through the letters training, you know, we felt like it would be a huge resource to improve our decodable library. And so we now have that in the back of the library-ish area. Our teachers can check out decodable books, so they have those resources to help enhance their instruction. Math K2, still an increased focus on number sense, but this year with our new math resource, it's actually a really cool theme. They're really heavy on number sense. Our new curricular resource, Math Expressions, is one of their main themes or topics is number sense. So they have activities and strategies to try to improve and increase number sense throughout the curriculum. Moving on, 3 through 6, same thing. Goals moving forward for this year. We'll reassess at the end of this year and decide if we're going to just tweak or look at new goals next year. But there again, changes are in yellow. In reading, looking at word study daily. You know, really focusing on word study, vocabulary, those specific skills for our older grades. We feel like that was an area that was lacking, but that coming back to the letters concepts as well, if you don't understand what words mean, you can't really understand what you're reading, right? Just to put it plainly and simply. Anything you want to add there, Kath, with the reading? Okay, math, same thing, just using math expressions again. We really feel like just getting this consistency and continuity K through 6, or K through 5 for sure. Having a structured resource for our teachers to utilize in their instruction, it should help us. And it's mental math in grades 3 through 6, so it's kind of that recall fact, basic fact practice. But there's still an increased focus on number sense. That's kind of the foundation of all mathematics. And so, with science, instead of 60 minutes like K through 2, we're 90 minutes in 3 through 6. And so that's designed specifically to science standards. And like I said, the beautiful thing, especially in our older grade levels, is they are using it in relation to nonfiction text, which we felt like our instruction was lacking a little bit, but there's just cross-curricular instruction going on. And so another thing with the science is a lot of the grade level teachers in my building have met with Mrs. Besh. And so there's kind of some supplemental pieces there, like if she's not able to hit on certain standards, or the classroom teachers aren't necessarily able to do some experiments, they're kind of working together to, create the best opportunity for our students. So, on that, any questions in regards to K through 6 math reading goals, MCA scores?
All right, so the next 3 slides will just give you a review of the high school proficiency scores. The high school increased their proficiency scores.
And so they're 7, 8, and 10 are assessed.
Yes, 7, 8, and 10 in reading, thanks. Our math scores also increased. One thing I want to say, this is what I was thinking when Andy helped me out, the reading scores, the math scores, the science scores, we are not happy with 53.6%. We met our goal for 1 year, and we're still working. There might be some hiccups that happen, but we are proud that we're at or above state average in all of this, so.
And this is also too, like Dan's done comparisons, to our region, or I'd say regional schools, and we're at or near the top of in all categories, which is encouraging, to the things that are happening in our district. Yep.
So math, 59.9% of our high schoolers are proficient, and that's grades 7 through 8 and 11. In science, we are also above state average at 37.4%. In the high school, students take the science test in 8th grade, and also after they've taken human biology, and at Aiken High School, they take biology in 10th grade. Other schools might have a different way that they present their curriculum, so that's why it says high school for the state.
And so in the high school, we have kind of different pillars that we kind of look at, and our overarching is kind of our MTSS model, where it's the multiple tiered system of supports. And so we're looking at, our theme this year is belonging. We want all students to feel like they belong at Aiken High School, because if their basic needs are met and they feel safe and part of our community, they will learn. And so that's kind of our goal this year. In our homeroom advisory time, academic and relationships are our #1 thing that we're pushing this year, where we're learning about the students individually, we're learning about what they like, what their career goals maybe are, so that they can help have conversations on, well, maybe you want to take this class next year, or maybe you want to take this class next year. So they're just really being more intentional on what's happening. Everyone is expected to connect with their child at least once a week in each of their homerooms on, here's your grades, how do you know how to check in to Infinite Campus and check your own grades, how you doing, all of those things. We also have, twice a month we do Character Strong lessons, the 2nd and the 4th Wednesday of every month. All homerooms need to take that time and do the lessons. Our first one was last Wednesday, and so it was a learning experience for the teachers as well as the kids, and looking at warning kids ahead of time that they're gonna lose a chunk of their homeroom's work time, so that they were planning ahead a little bit. So there's some kinks to work out a little bit. But then with that comes my walkthroughs. 2 of our best practices that we're working on this year with all staff we're continuing with our learning targets, making sure that everybody knows what their goal is for the day in that lesson, and then making sure that the kids know what's expected within that goal. What are you expected to learn in there? And then facilitating meaningful discourse. And that is the teacher talking all the time? Are the kids talking all the time? Who's talking, and is there a balance? Are the kids sharing their knowledge with each other, as well as is the teacher sharing their knowledge with the kids? Or are the kids sharing that knowledge with the teacher? So that's, those are our two best practices that we're working on this year, as well as the literacy training and curriculum mapping in our PLCs every Wednesday. Kathy's doing literacy training for all of the staff every Wednesday morning up until our November in-service date. And then after that, we're gonna be working on setting goals, building in that literacy component within our curriculum, and then doing a parent communication document that we'll have for each of the subject areas. Those are kind of our goals. And then always trying to keep up with parent communication and letting them know what's going on in our building. So those are kind of our goals to meet the district goals and our building goals. Questions?
So as we look at this, as we put this together, and it's been an ongoing process, but when we set you can look at it bottom up or top down. I'll go with top down. We set our district-wide goals of 3% in each area. And then I asked each building, okay, what are you gonna do as a building? What can you do in the high school, what can you do in the elementary to help us reach this district goal? Then we asked our staff underneath in each building to say, okay, what can you in your grade level or your department do to help the building reach the goal, which in turn will help the district reach its goal? And then we asked teachers to take what you came up with at your grade level or in your department. What are you gonna do in your class? What can you do individually in your class every day in your lessons to help your team grade level meet their goal, which is gonna help the building meet the goal, which in turn helps the district meet its goal. So it all kind of interconnects. It's taken a little bit to kind of get that together, but I really think the one thing that helped us turn the corner on this was the first data day that we added last year, where the staff all got to sit down and look at our MCA results and compare them to the standards and break that down and see why some things were clicking and some things weren't. And it was just around the gym at the time, the tables were like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. Or, oh, geez, I didn't know we hit this in 3 straight class, or I didn't know we didn't catch this. So that was really a powerful day for our staff, and I think that's kind of carried over with. And we had people, reading math science, what's everybody else do? Well, they found in we're helping them, or they're seeing in their content areas how they can help with technical reading in the industrial arts wing or whatever. So the added 2 days, I think, is another part of this. So it's hard to say what one thing or any one thing is more important than the other. I think it's a whole smorgasbord of a lot of things we're doing and the work that's getting done to help us increase our scores.
And one feather we should put in our district cap is that we are looking at the achievement gap that our students have from different populations and groups. So it might be free and reduced lunch population, it might be, what's that? Might be special education, minority groups, and we really are paying attention to that and closing the achievement gaps for some of those groups. Some of those groups we still have work to do. But we should be really proud of that as a district, because I think that reflects not the academic things that we're doing in the classroom, but the relationships that people are building. Because when kids, you guys know this, I hope, that when kids come here and they feel valued and taken care of and all of those things that we can't really measure, those achievement gaps are closed, so. Are there any questions? We took more than our 10 minutes. But it's important.
Go ahead, Cindy.
One of the criticisms that we oftentimes receive from the public is that the state's benchmarks, if you will, are always around that 50th percentile. And so if you could maybe talk about that, I think there are people in our community who think our school district should be at the 95th percentile. And so what is the philosophy behind why that benchmark really hovers around that 50 mark?
So I'll get Can I get on my soapbox?
Well, let me, before you do that, Mr. Brett, you know, that's interesting, that's been a discussion, in some of my superintendent meetings this fall, you know, because our scores improved, there were districts that didn't, and the question is exactly that. Why are our benchmarks set at 50%, and we have to go out and explain that, so if I get a 50% on most tests, I'm not gonna pass, but we're saying that, you know, and the best answer anybody's come up with yet is that's because that's how it's set up.
Well, I wondered if it was sort of related to the bell-shaped curve, right, where the
Yeah,
majority of your people are gonna be kind of at the middle, and then you're gonna have people that are gonna score higher, and
Yeah.
people or groups that are gonna score lower, but that's just a common,
They do manipulate the tests, like, I mean, you might, after the tests are taken, they will throw all the questions, I mean, you could have 90% of people get it right, or 90% get it wrong, nobody knows what questions they throw out.
And those tests are not vertically aligned either. The state has never taken the time to vertically align those tests. So here's this test that's gonna test on these skills, and then here's this test that may be related, maybe not related. And so it's a moving target every year, and you never know what's truly going to be, and each group of kids is so different that even if you taught all of these skills, the test is gonna test other things.
I mean, the closest we can get is they have what's called test, achievement level descriptors or test specs. So, for example, they might have, you know, algebra readiness, let's say an 8th grade skill. They're gonna say there's 14 to 22 questions on the test, but Lisa's not getting the same test that I am. So you might have 14, I might have 20, you know, you just don't know, you know, and so there's just a lot of variation, and there's.
it sort of seems to me like that's sort of the baseline of what parents or families or students can expect to be able to be successful with graduation rates or college or career ready. Sort of like a well-child exam, I guess we can use that as an example. And so to me, that's how I've answered it, is that 50th percentile mark is just really sort of the baseline of what we can expect to see for successful students. And obviously, you're going to have some who are scoring way higher, right? And so that's, I guess, how I answered it. I just don't know if that's a correct.
Well, and so they measure their proficiency, right? So that's kids that meet or exceed, okay? We have a lot of kids that are dang close to meeting, that they're not in that, you know what I'm saying? So they're not in that 54.9% of proficiency, but they're really dang close, you know? And so we have a lot of those discussions as educators, how do we, you know, boost them up, but I don't know if there is a.
It's sort of like when you're in track and field, you're gonna make it over the hurdle if you're hitting that 54,
And we're gonna get
right?
there,
Yeah.
but we are gonna get there, because I see really good things happening in our classrooms.
We should-
So I
we should-
know that teachers are working really hard. Sorry, Dan.
We all right, we should let
Ready for
Kathy-
the
we should let
soapbox
Kathy
now.
go before she.
Well,
Yeah,
this
before
is
she
come
goes
from
up there.
a recovering English
keeps
teacher,
catching
so
herself.
I'm thinking about literacy.
The other thing is the community looks at that 50% and then says the other 50% can't read. That is also not true in the story of our test scores either. It's not that you either get a pass or a fail. You can't read, you can read. That's not what is happening there either, and that's another misconception.
And that's kind of what I was
It would be
going
nice
through with
if
the
the
close,
state-
right, or they're partially meeting, you
Yeah,
know, the standards, but they're just not meeting or exceeding, and doesn't mean they don't know how to read.
yes, exactly.
And I
That's
think
a
some
misconception.
education should be done about, this is not just I know they call it the reading test, but it's not just a reading test. So you can have students who are fluently reading, and then you ask, this test is checking to see that they're fluently reading, and then asking them to do complex tasks, which is literacy, like making inferences. If adults took this test, I think that they would be surprised to see that they're not just checking your fluency to see if you can read words. They're actually asking you really complex questions about what you've read.
Well, that's what I say, can adults take this, can we have our community take this?
I can share we can share the sample one.
It would be
Then
interesting.
or the sample test.
But there's no way to score it, I mean,
Well, we can show you some of the test questions that have been released and then tell you, they actually have this, they have this whole
Resource library.
resource that they give where it gives you a test question and then it tells you why A is wrong, why B is wrong, why C is correct, why D is incorrect. And so when they're designing these tests, C and D are really close together, but C is the most correct, right? So there, it is a complex test and you can see some of the questions and see what the correct answer is, so you could like grade it yourself.
I would venture to say that many adults that take the test would not score above 50%.
So it's kind of misleading when you say reading. I wish that they would change the name to literacy, because we're literate in a lot of different subjects, and that's why Mr. Stichter suggests that everybody should be teaching reading, because you have to be literate in everything to understand, to get the main idea. So that's my soapbox.
When I come back to, you know, like you just said, like, they may not be better than 50%, and that's not what these numbers mean. That's not saying that only 50%, you know, you only got 50% right on the tests, right? Like, it's that proficiency rate. So like I said, our kids that, let's say you need in 7th grade, you need a 750 to meet. We have kids that are 749, 748, 747, so they're not counting positively for us on here, but they have the skills, you know, I mean, it's really hard to, outside of the education world, to comprehend what these numbers truly mean.
Well, and I think for the average person that doesn't understand that, the reality is that we do not have buildings full of illiterate children.
Correct.
We have very smart children who are continuing to learn. And looking at the state averages and looking at these numbers, you all deserve to be commended, because the changes that you've made and the shifts that you have done has bore out in the numbers. And so thank you for the work that you've done, and I know you've been working on it the last few years. And so, but I do think it's important for our community to understand we do not have buildings full of illiterate children. Our children they're smart, they're being well educated, and we have good staff who is working with the evolution of education, because education is evolving. And we are always evolving, so.
Well, I think like Dan said, Lisa reiterates, and I feel, I mean, it is a credit to our staff, right? I mean,
Yes.
that's who deserves credit.
The other thing I will say about these test scores, and I keep, even as my grandchildren have taken part in these tests, I always go back to, this is a snapshot. This is a one-shot deal. And if a child didn't sleep well the night before, maybe they're coming down with a cold, whatever, they didn't eat a good breakfast, they didn't have enough water, I mean, there are 1,000,001 things that play into why a child may or may not have done well on these. And all it is a snapshot. And I know that you have other data that you follow that is more closely watched, weekly data that you're reviewing. So,
It's more real-time data.
yes.
Well, and I always go back to, you look at 2016. It was either 2015 or 2016, I can't remember which year, that you were allowed to take the test up to 3 times. And so that was, the state had this system, which was so much better. I mean, nobody wanted to over-test, but if kids didn't feel comfortable with their score, they could try again. And so that's why we got the higher scores. Because they took the highest score that each child did. And it really helped them see the test. Not that anybody wants to sit for an hour and take another test, but it really did help.
Only 15 was last year.
I
Was
wish
it
I could have a
2050?
redo on some of my days. So we're not-
I was gonna say, I want to redo our life, come on now.
Remember, 2015 or 2016 or 2016? I think it was 15.
I have said for as long as I've been on the board, the story we tell is the story we live. And I really think that this is a story that we need to celebrate and we need to tell. Because our children in our district are scoring at higher levels than the state average. That's something to celebrate, and it's something that we need to continue to tell that story. Is there room for improvement? Always. There's always room for improvement. And it sounds like you know that, and you're going to continue to work on improvement. But our kids are doing great.
In fact, in math, we're number 1, and that includes Brainerd, Crosby, Pequot.
That's because we are ISD1.
Yes, so.
Your guys' compassion and commitment to this just really, I can feel it, so thank you for that, and to the rest of the staff. It's really incredible. Enjoy the birthday night.
Yeah.
That's good.
Ben's birthday. That's great. Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Dan, do you need that projector anymore?
I know. I know why.
It would be nice to have a spreadsheet kind of showing where we fall in comparison to the other neighboring surroundings.
He's got that.
Yeah, yeah,
I think I shared that.
yeah.
I mean, for the public to see.
You can go into the thing and move it around sooner than later. No, not, I mean, you can look, not even mean that, you can look at it, can't you look
Yeah.
and
Oh, on the
compare
report
on your
card.
own?
Yeah.
Do
See
that.
the report card.
Have
I
to do
did,
some-
we did, I did share out in Cat Rob from the Age. Sat down in our room with Kathy, Lisa, Andy, and I and talked test scores, so we had our head spinning for a bit because we were all teacher talking at her for a while. But I think she put together a nice article that should be in the paper this week, so kind of talking about, we didn't get into necessary comparisons with other districts, but just what we did, a lot of what we talked about tonight, you know, should be a part of that article, so that's good.
Well, even comparing us to other districts across the state, not even within our region, I mean, there's so much difference between what we have here for campuses versus other ones. You know, our tax base is lower, and there's certain things that we do, and we probably do pretty well, considering what we're doing with what we have for resources. And I think the staff, it shows that they are committed to do that, so.
Yeah, I think it'd be even better to crosswalk the data scores with the per pupil tax-based rate.
Yeah, you're exactly right, and that's.
Well, we have amazing staff, and we know that our staff understands how valuable relationships are. And education does not happen without relationship. And so I think there's been so much change the last few years. So I found myself thinking when Dan was talking, man, I'm glad he's got to keep track of all this stuff. Because as he was talking, I was remembering some things, but to actually keep track of it, to be able to report it out, something very different, so thank you.
Thank you. It's a good team.
Okay, so we'll move on in the agenda. We have old business items. We have policies that are up for a second reading. Is it 7A through 7J? Or no? No?
7-0.
Through 7O. Those are all,
Oh, yeah, yep,
those are all second reading?
yep.
Okay.
I think I shared the update, but or on the first time around, these are part of the annual review or the semi-annual review, depending on where they're at. Policy, the 500 series are anyway, just updated with recommended wording from MSBA. And then 621 and 624 were policies that we approved in July, I think it was. We had all the new policies, but we're finding out is that some of the policies that we had to approve in one reading all at once, so we'd be legally meeting the requirements. Now they're coming back and they're making some adjustments as they sort through all the legislation and what it means. So the literacy and the READ Act, that includes the letters that we talked about, the letters training, and then just online instruction or some things that changed in that, so just the update those as MSBA recommends, so I would ask that they all be approved.
So should we approve them all in one motion?
I think we can approve all in one motion.
Okay. All right, so I'll entertain a motion to approve these policies that are before us.
I'll make a motion to approve the policies for second reading.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor, is there any more discussion? I should ask now. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed by the same sign. Any abstentions? Motion carries. We'll move on to the new business and our consent agenda items. Our consent agenda items go 8A all the way down to 8B. And I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll make the motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Any more discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed by the same sign? Any abstentions? Motion carries. And then we have discussion items. So Dan, I'll let you talk about the handbook.
So in August, we approved individual handbooks for high school and individual handbook for Rippleside. Andy and Lisa put together a handbook, a district-wide handbook. They didn't quite have that in final form in August. So I decided to bring it back. I want to get board approval. It's really the two handbooks combined. I don't know if Andy or Mr. Mars or Mr. Docken want to add anything to it, or it's just a matter of having it all in one document.
So the district handbook includes the MSBA handbook that we purchased as well, that had all the policies. So that's the biggest difference, is that MSBA kind of has it laid out a little differently, so it encompasses both Andy and my handbooks, but then we felt that we should keep our individual handbooks as well, because it was a little bit more clear in certain areas. So, but all of the policies that they're saying we should really have for parents to access right away, than having to go find the policies, are all in that handbook. So that's really the biggest difference.
And also, like, if families have, students in multiple buildings, like, it's one resource. It's Rippleside, high school, and district all in one resource. And so that was why we did what we did.
It's about 100 pages, so we aren't gonna print it for everybody. But it is all encompassing, and it is nice to have.
So we need a motion and a second to approve that.
I'll entertain a motion to approve the combined handbook.
Does the formatting then match up with like how our policies have been, how we've done like the 400s and the 500s? Or when we're going through policies, are we gonna need to go back and amend it here too?
Oh, yeah, it would, yes, I don't know, as far as the formatting and stuff, it's gonna look different, but yeah, but that was the advantage of going with getting the MSBA version. What we had done prior to that is we tried to match with the policies where this was, kind of did it already.
And so this will eliminate what we've had in the past, or replace, I should say.
Replace a lot of it, replace what applied district-wide, but then like Lisa, or one of the two said, there are some things different between the two buildings, those will still have separate sections, but this brings it all into one. Instead of having, I don't say interpretation, but have the Rippleside's version and the high school version, it's all linked together in the main supporting document, and then any differences between the two are outlined in that part of it, or in the end, toward the end of it, I guess.
Like an appendix, yeah.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to approve the student handbook.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any more discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed by the same sign? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Dan, do you want to talk about the payable levy?
I will for a few seconds, then I'll turn it over to Heather, but, yeah, so we certify the levy at this point in time, typically districts certified at the maps. knowing that at the end of the year in December, we will actually set the limit. And I'm gonna, Heather, are you able to talk any more on it from there?
At this point, that's really the gist of it. We don't have any numbers at this point other than it won't be, a significant change. It's just based on our final student counts and where those numbers end up. So, like you said, like Dan said, it will just be the maximum at this point.
So once we set it at the maximum, we can always go back and back off and have it be lower, but we can't set it lower tonight and then have it be higher after tonight. So that's been a long standing practice here this month, is our time frame where we set it at the maximum and then we can back off if we need to before the truth and taxation hearing.
That is correct.
So you just need a motion to approve?
Yep.
All right, so I'll entertain a motion to approve to set the truth and taxation hearing for December 18th at 6 PM here in the high school media center.
I'll move.
Wait, we're on
Oh, yeah, the two events. We gotta approve the
The
levy
maximum levy.
certification first. I guess it doesn't matter, but
I'll make a motion to approve the 2024 levy to be set at the maximum.
Okay, is there a second to Cindy's motion?
Ron,
Did
Did I
you
beat you?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, I'll take it.
We'll go back to the other one. All right. Is there any more discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed by the same sign. Any abstentions? Motion carries. Okay, now we'll go back to setting the date for the truth and taxation hearing.
Can we do that at our December meeting? We'll do that at 6 o'clock, and then our regular board meeting will follow at 6:30. So a motion and a second to approve that. So,
That date.
yep.
I'll make the motion to set that for the December board meeting at 6 o'clock.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Any more discussion? So we are setting the time for 6 PM for truth and taxation, and then our board meeting will follow. It won't happen in the board meeting.
Yep, exactly.
So just to clarify that, all right. Is there any more discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed by the same sign. Any abstentions? Motion carries. Okay, we're on to our administrative reports. Are there any board member reports? We'll have reports when we go to the conference in November. So, should we move on to committee reports? The policy committee meeting? Did you have a board report?
No, I didn't.
Oh, okay.
Well, I'll jump in on the policy committee. Again, just reading through the policies, again, we're in the 500s. Take a look, updating as the MSBA does some updating. And then we threw in, or I brought in the admission to school activities, since we are, it is a board policy, we're changing the policy to allow students in free. That's what is reflected there in the 729. So, any questions?
Their first readings, so we don't need to approve them, right?
Nope.
Just so that we're aware. Okay. And then we have the facilities and finance meeting.
You guys like listening to me so well. Just a couple of updates there. I think the old gym project is done, with the exception some pads that still need to be installed and updated. Our install, we have them here, they just haven't had a chance to get them up yet. Our fire alarm evacuation system in the high school, which is a big project this summer, was done. The fire marshal was here today. I think that system, I believe the system's fine. There might be some other things we have to address. The tennis court project is wrapped up, a few punch list things. There's a scar on the one court that needs to be addressed. But we're in a good spot with that. We had some curriculum updates, just talking about the math, science, and SEL curriculum is here, and it's in the process of being used. And then, if you remember last spring, we had some water, rain issues at Rippleside. We believe all the problem areas have been patched at this point at Rippleside. Steve Snyder was having, I forget the company now, I forget the name, but they're coming in, they're gonna go across, they went across both buildings last week with some, just to get an update of what some of our future holds for our roofs and some of the concerns that are at both buildings. So they're working on a report for that we'll get hopefully at a future facilities meeting.
Did you say there's a dedication on the 21st?
Yep, there is. 4 o'clock, I was gonna get to that. So dedication of tennis courts, Jen Waldorf, Jason Klein are working on a simple program, I think, or just to dedicate tennis courts back, again, to Don Hagenstoon, who had the previous one, and then Carl Walls for the bang wall or pound wall as well. So 4 o'clock on Thursday.
Are those families committed to being?
I think, I believe so. I don't know if you had contact, you were maybe in contact with John Woodrow has been in contact with the Hagenstoon family, and I believe, I know the Walls know about it, because I talked with them both, Joe and Cindy, so. But, yeah, if you're around on Thursday at 4 o'clock, you said it's gonna be, I anticipate it being real long, but just a few words. And then I do know John has reached out to some of Don's, maybe some of his first tennis players or the first teams that were still in the area, see if they'd be a part of it, so should be kind of fun. Also on the facilities, going back to that part of it, you know, we were picking away at some of the facilities things, and I think the next area we want to look at is the rigging and the curtains in the auditorium. It depends, there could be some safety risks, safety hazards there. That's something that's been on in the facilities list, I think, since 2011, maybe. That'd be the first paperwork item. So we're gonna take a look at that and see if that can be the next thing, you know, it just, what the cost is and what we can maybe do to address that. So that would be our next, what our next big project is. Hopefully, everything else goes together, so that can be what we look at next.
Yeah, the longer we wait, the more expensive it's gonna be.
Yep. Yeah, now you eat an elephant one piece at a time, one bite at a time, right? That's kind of what we're doing.
Okay, we'll move on to the principal report. Mr. Dockin, do you have anything more you want to share?
Just a couple things. We had 95% attendance at entrance conferences. Pretty amazing. Kindergarten Roundup, they wanted me to say thank you for supporting our kindergarten kinder camp and letting them come in a day early. Very beneficial. Just lots of really good things going on. Started our new Character Strong, just kind of some fun things. We read a morning kindness thing that goes right along with our Character Strong SDL lessons. But every day there's a daily kind of reading reminder. Our theme for the year, I didn't get to share it earlier, is relationships first. That kind of applies to everybody that we work with, whether it's you know, teachers to students, teachers to families, staff to staff, all the above. So it kind of goes hand in hand with Lisa on belonging, but really a positive start. We heard a lot of good things. I played music and had speakers out front for the kids on the first day, and they absolutely loved it. We heard a lot of positive things from parents. Pretty cool things. So, like I said, been a really good start to the year. And book vending machine is a big hit too. If you guys haven't seen that in Rippleside, it's really cool. But really a talking point. Kids got their first tokens on last Friday, and so that's a pretty big deal. It's right up in front. We put it right up in front for now, but it's really cool. And Cassie did some of the design on the outside, so thank you for that. But yeah, really a cool thing for our students to have. So.
Awesome, thank you. Mr. Mars, could you share with us?
Sure.
You have more to share, I should say.
Well, I don't have that much more. I already shared a lot over the other presentation, but if you noticed, Ms. Foraves decorations on first floor outside the hallway. That is National Hispanic Heritage Month. So the kids decorated shirts and decorated lots of different things. They are very proud of those. So if you haven't had a chance, walk down the hallway by the office and see everything hanging up. We had the fire inspectors here today, so they were taking pictures, so I'm waiting for that write-up. But anyways, but it looks fantastic, so I'll take it. We'll be dinged for a little tiny bit, and we'll take it down, we'll be fine.
When Miss Irma asked you if she could do a little decorating, that whole, a little decorating is apparently, so.
Yeah, it looks just fantastic.
It's every day there's something added to it, I think, so.
Oh, yes, oh, yes. The kids are like, you forgot mine, mine's done now, so she has to hang it up. So it looks fantastic. It's really fun to have that decoration. Next week, we're gonna have hallway spirit competition during homeroom time. They are going to be a team in each hallway, and they're gonna decorate their hallway for homecoming week, and then we will, I'm not sure who's gonna judge yet, but that will be to kind of decorate our building so then we can leave it up for a little bit. So it looks not as boring in some areas. So that's kind of, but our couple weeks have gone well. Jim's fantastic. I don't know what I'd do without him. He's running all over the place, hiding different places to see if kids are doing what they're supposed to be doing. So it's always fun. Alternative school started in the West Wing here at the high school, and that's gone really well. So everything's going well. Peer leaders have their first activity on Friday. Mr. Richters and Mrs. Klein are kind of the advisors of the peer leader groups. They're at 11th and 12th graders that are chosen by staff to kind of mentor our 7th and 8th grade kids and our new students coming in. So they have their first activity on Friday for the new and newly enrolled students back in our school. And then congratulations to Kendall Ratz. I don't know if you know that. Kendall received an academic honor from the College Board National Rural and Small Town Recognition Program. Looking at her academics, her hard work, and what she's all involved in, and so that was really a good honor. So that was really exciting to get that. So that's all I have.
Awesome, thank you. I did walk down the hallway when that display first went up, and I just kind of smiled, because I knew exactly what it was. So thank you.
I love her passion.
Well, Dan, you're up.
All right. Contract negotiations, we approved the driver's contract tonight, and we added a cleaners agreement. If you remember, the cleaners came out of the custodial contract as part of their deal. So we set up a separate agreement with them. We met with the teachers. I think we've made good progress with the teachers. We've met with the paras. We've just got to take a look at some of the things that have been, and the board members want to jump in and have been at either one of these, but I think they've all really been fairly positive in all the contract negotiations so far, as far as the communication goes, and it's just, and where we're at, getting, some areas need to be adjusted, like we did last time around with a couple of contracts. Well, we're doing that here, so. But I think contract negotiations, I don't see us, knock on wood, any major roadblocks going forward. It's just a matter of having the time to get it done, and then there's just the Paid Family Medical Leave Act keeps popping up. One time we seem to think that we're good because our contract covers more than that. Well, then there's more to that, so that's something I'm keeping an eye on, and we'll continue to watch. I'm busy with the teachers. They feel like it's covered in our contract already, but I know it's a lot of talk about that. I want to make sure we get that covered the way it needs to be covered. So, any questions on negotiations? On enrollment, our enrollment data, we're down students, but when I take out the fact that we graduated, when we look at the number of students we graduated last year on the senior class, when we brought in the in kindergarten, it's a we graduated 93 last year, we brought in 56 kindergartners. That's 37 students right there, we were gonna be down out of the gates. We are down 5 more than that, we're actually down 42 students, so we have had, some numbers shift and some homeschooling and things like that, but the 5 students is, I must say, nothing, it's not, nothing to panic about, but the big number is that our numbers are down, and we knew that was coming because of just declining enrollment, so that's where we're at. So we're down 42 total students from last year at this time, but 37 of them were just because of the difference in size of graduating classes, so. Questions on that?
No, but I know that we've had students who have moved away, we've had new students enroll, and so it just is all kind of
Yeah. Well, and that's all figured in there, and that just kind of, you have that fluctuation, and especially at the start of the school year, there'll be more fluctuation at this time. We'll see it again at mid-year, after the first semester, there'll be some bumping and moving as well, but, so I can tell you we do know there's more homeschoolers or the homeschool this year again, but I couldn't tell you for sure if these 5 are directly related to homeschool or just we've had more students move out than we've had move in, so. Yeah. Strategic planning, you're all here on Monday night. Strategic planning, a little bit of back and forth with Gail from MSBA, but I haven't seen anything yet. What we do as a board, like get a couple of people, maybe 3 board members, sit down, take a look at the community members and see. I think I had 11 on my list. I'll make sure I got everybody that had talked to you or you had talked to, and decide if we want everybody on there, or, I had some that say, hey, I can be there one night, but not all nights. I'm not so sure, it wouldn't hurt to have maybe a few extras, and I do think we're getting a wider range of, people in the community, to be a part of that, but I'd like to, Don, if you're interested sometime, or maybe another board member or two, just take a look at the list and see where we're at. I got a list of, from Andy and Lisa, of some staff that'll be on it and a part of it, and next week's meeting will be get a kind of a state of the district update. We're really looking at our facilities plan that we've got, and talking about that, and talking about some other initiatives going on, just kind of letting everybody know what ISD1 is, and most people will have an idea, but that's kind of where we'll start, and then Gail will spend some time talking about what we found out not only on the interview day last Monday, but also on all the surveys that they're sorting through and working off of. So that'll be next Tuesday night. Questions on that?
Is it strictly a board session, or are we having
No, that'll be
with the
we're
community members?
Yep, the committee members, and it's open as well. People.
So we need to have this, pick out these committee members before next
It'd be
Tuesday?
good, yeah, or at least take a look, see if we wanna, I don't think we wanna exclude, I don't think we need to reduce numbers on it, just, like I said, some said they'd like to be a part of it, but I can't commit every night. It might be good to have, just to, go with the list we have, but, if somebody like take some time, and if Don and I just to take a look at it, that's good too. I'll send you all the list of what I have on it, and just so that you can tell me if I missed anybody that, so I was getting some emails or maybe text messages, hey, contact this person, and I just feel like I don't wanna miss somebody.
And I had a community member share a concern that they couldn't fill out a hard copy for the survey because a lot of them didn't know what that little kiosk was. And I said, when it first came out, I didn't either ask my kids what app I needed to use this thing, but now I know. And I did say that we had mentioned that and considered it, but that the MSBA advised against it, but I couldn't remember why.
I think it was a matter of just collecting the data. We did have paper copies available. They had contacted us. We had several copies in each. I think each item we had some in the district office that we would have had them complete it. And what we would have done, what MSBA said they would do, they didn't want 100 of them, but they would then take that data and log it in. They would take what the person turned in on a paper copy, and they would log it in as a survey. So, yeah, I don't know if anybody reached out here, whether anybody contacted you here. I don't know that we were, so, but, okay. So QR code.
QR code, yes. You too. Many of us.
tennis courts are all kind of hit, dedication on Thursday night, and again, it's, our Don Augustine tennis courts, and I think those of you who knew, well, know the Augustine family, but knew Don, knew that Don's reach was well beyond the tennis courts. He might have been part of the starting up a tennis program, but I think Don, for myself included, was a mentor to a lot of people in our community, a lot of people on our staff, was just a all around good family, so it was cool a couple years ago when they named it Don Augustine Courts, and I don't wanna, have no reason to think that should ever change, so, so if you're available, again, come on out, and looks like the weather should be a great week for that, but 4 o'clock on Thursday, there'll be a rededication of the courts to Don, so. We have the, any questions on that, right? October board meeting options, we have it out in Palisade. Are we game for that again? Do we want to go out there for a board meeting?
When we were gonna go there last year, why do I remember a discussion about no internet? And
Yeah, there was some
something, and
concern, and we ended up,
And there was a conflict, they
Yeah.
had another meeting.
they had a area fireman's training the night we were going, so we ended up not going out there. I think it's probably good PR, good for us to go out there, but nothing says we have to, other than, kind of like going down to Melmo in the spring, it's just we walk. So if we want to, I'll see if we can get the community center and plan on heading out there, and maybe my mix up with getting this arranged tonight will be good practice for next month. People will be aware that it might not be live, but I'll see if we make arrangements to go out to Palisade in October for our board meeting, and we can go from there. And then on October 4th, I believe it is, Dave Baker and his wife will be presenting, doing a presentation on the opioid crisis. Many of you probably know Dave and his wife. I forget her name is Mary. Mary Aiken grew up and graduated from Aiken. They lost a son to an opioid crisis, and he's got the opioid addiction, and they've gone around doing presentations. Just the communities are going to meet with our high school students in 2 different groups on the night. I'm sure it's the 4th. I think it's a Wednesday the 4th. We are going to serve a meal. We had some community funds from the CARES that we can use to spend to bring the community together, so we're going to provide a meal. Terry Docks, when I asked him if he'd provide a meal, he said, I'll do it if I can do chicken and mushroom gravy over wild rice. That sounds pretty good. So yes, we can do that. So Terry and his staff will prepare the meal, and we use some CARES funding to cover it. It's open. We're inviting anybody and everybody to a free meal, and then to hear Dave and Mary's presentation. The night meeting, we're gonna have a panel up there with some local medical people. I'll be there, our school nurse will be there. And then we're gonna have law enforcement just to answer questions kind of as a panel of things where people ask questions of the crowd. They said they've had anywhere from just very small, maybe a dozen people, to a couple hundred people show up. We don't know, maybe, but I think the local connection, that people might know them and know their story, I think will help, and then food always helps as well. But,
I'm happy to help serve that,
okay, I'll let Terry know.
that's on the 4th, you think?
Yeah, it's a Wednesday night.
It's a Wednesday.
What
Pretty
time?
sure it's the 4th.
The meal's at 5:30, I think the meal is. I should have that.
We have to have mushrooms.
Yes.
That's it, is it?
You can spit them out.
Eat around it.
You can pick them out.
Just make sure they're big enough so I can flip them at
Well, I
dawn.
tell you
We'll
what.
call Terry.
All right, thank you.
Wednesday the 4th, it's in Aiken, and at 6:30, the meal starts at 5:30. So the meal's from 5:30 to 6:30 with the presentation after.
And that's here.
Yeah, it'll be meal will be in the cafeteria downstairs, and we'll have the presentation in the auditorium.
It's been fairly well advertised.
The county is doing much of the legwork on it, so they've been getting the message out. And we tried to get them last spring when things were, we're seeing some concerns, and he was in legislative sessions he wasn't getting time to get away, so he was relatively sure that if we planned it in October, they wouldn't be in session anymore, or either way. So yeah, looking forward to having it here. So, and yeah, the county has been their seats pretty hard on this, as has, the hospital. So, I think that's it.
All right. We have the very last thing on our agenda, it just says other. Is there anything else that we need to talk about before we run through the list of meetings and adjourn? We've received quite a bit of information this evening, so.
Yep.
All right, if there's nothing else, we have upcoming meetings. Next Monday, September 26th, the strategic planning meeting is at 6:30 here in the media center. On Tuesday, the 27th, the personnel meeting will take place at 3:45. All these meetings are here in the media center. October 10th, the strategic planning meeting at 6:30. October 11th, the policy meeting will take place. October 16th, the school board meeting, which will probably be in Palisade, but we'll figure it out.
Keep you posted.
Yeah. October 24th, a strategic planning meeting at 6:30, and November 9th is a strategic planning meeting at 6:30. And if there's nothing else, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed by the same sign. Any abstentions? Motion carries and we are adjourned.